I'm going to moderate. My name is Dana Mutis, and we have these lovely people up here who are going to intro themselves. So if we want to start from this side, and you guys can just intro who you are, your job title, and that's really it. I'll get into the questions after.
Cool. Hey everyone, my name is Paul Dudinakis. I am a first lieutenant, active duty in the Air Force, and I am a fighter pilot.
Hi guys, I'm Michelle Torsky. I'm a consultant at Deloitte, and in particular, I'm Chief Product Officer over an asset that we're developing for the government.
Hi everyone, my name's Lexi Prodromos. I work at Discover Financial Services, and I lead their innovation team, specifically working in the space of cryptocurrency and blockchain.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eunice Bueller. I work at a tech company called G2, and I'm their general counsel.
Hi, everyone. George Susu. Similar to Eunice, I'm also an attorney. I'm a litigator focusing on patents and intellectual property at Patterson Belknap.
Hello, Mariana Pantelidis. I'm an AVP at Valley Bank on their commercial real estate team, and I'm doing my MBA at NYU Stern.
Hi, I'm Nicole Voslu. I am a wellness consultant and the co-founder of The Living Fuel.
Hello, I'm Manoli Lagos, also the founder of The Living Fuel, a wellness consultancy based out of Miami.
Okay, great. So the way this is going to work, we have a number of questions that the panelists here will be asking. I'll be asking them, and we'll kind of just have a conversation around really career development and what they've been up to. So for the first question, I kind of want to start with the origin story of why some of you are here, what you've built. So Manoli and Nicole, I would love to start with you guys. You're encompassing both health and wellness and consulting, so tell us your story, how you got there.
Yeah, so we spoke a little bit about this last year, but to give everybody a quick synopsis, essentially I was living in New York and I was working at PwC, and in my 5th and 6th year I started to get sick a lot and I didn't know what was up, and I got autoimmune diagnosis. I was waking up exhausted. I had a long list of symptoms. And I couldn't really shake them. So it kind of forced me to get into this world of health, wellness, nutrition. I started seeing a holistic doctor in New York, and that kind of opened my eyes to this. And I actually decided to go back to school, study nutrition, then ended up leaving the corporate world and starting this business. And Nicole, my fiance, joined with me about 2 years in. I'll let her tell her story.
We met here at Leadership, and I pushed Manoli to do this job because I think I subconsciously wanted to do it myself. But I got really sick with Lyme disease, and for about 1.5 years, I was really healing through that, and I also got very into nutrition and wellness, so he pushed me to go to school and also pursue it long term. So we joined forces and started our company together, and that's a little bit about me.
So, well, I'm going to switch around a little bit, but it's taking that story into mind, does anyone else have a similar story where maybe they were initially somewhere, right out of college, you had your first job and completely switched career paths or doing something different that you didn't initially think you were going to be a part of?
Yeah, if I can take a stab at this. So I entered college as a classical voice major, got an operatic singing background, ended up getting my degree in political science, was thinking about going down the law path, and then kind of stumbled into the emerging tech space, and around that time, it was 2014, 2015, the kind of blockchain space started really burgeoning then, so made a complete left turn into emerging technology, eventually went to obtained my master's in information systems, got a bit more of a bona fide tech background, and then have kind of been in this space ever since. But what I've really liked about it, and I think kind of the through line through most of that kind of really zigzag journey was just I was always really interested in kind of newer emerging areas, especially where there was maybe a little bit more of a gray area as to where the space was kind of going to be developing. So that's how I landed here.
Does anyone else want to give a stab? If not, Paul, I would love to hear how you got where you're at right now.
Yeah, of course. So when I was 10 years old, my papu took me to the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and we had the entire day, walked around and saw everything, and kind of caught the bug after that. I'm planes are kind of cool, and so I went home, and every single day I would you look on Wikipedia of all the planes on my mom's computer, begged my parents to sign me up for flying lessons, and they finally caved it when I was 13 and I started flying. I didn't really want to go in halfway, so I just dove in head first and decided I wanted to be a fighter pilot at that point, and worked towards getting an appointment to the United States Air Force Academy. And so I went to the Air Force Academy and graduated in 2020 with a degree in aeronautical engineering. I was fortunate enough to be selected for pilot training. And then since then, I've been working towards being a fighter pilot. I had to do about a year and a half, 2 years of undergraduate pilot training, where they teach us the basics in a small 1,200 horsepower, two-seater propeller plane. And they teach us how to take off, land, and then formation work and instrument work. And then after that, I was selected for the fighter bomber track. We moved to the T-38. It's a twin-engine, afterburning, super fast, pointy, and old plane. And then, kept working on that, and then was put in my preferences and was lucky enough to get selected for the F-16. And so at that point, I was selected for the F-16 and went through another few courses where they teach me how to, the intro, it's called IFF, Intro to Fighter Fundamentals, where they taught me the introduction to dogfighting and dropping bombs and doing low-level ingress, to kind of like what you see in the movies and stuff. And it was a ton of fun, extremely difficult, but I learned a lot. They sent me up to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They put me in a centrifuge, spun me around at 9 Gs to make sure I won't black out. Didn't do that, only once. And then after that, I did survival training. Actually, just this past month in December in Eastern Washington, going camping in -5-degree weather for a week and other stuff. And then after all that, earned the title of fighter pilot relatively recently. And then my next step is going on to fly the F-16 in New Mexico, where I'm going to do a 10-month course there, learning how to be a wingman, is the title for it in the fighter community.
Congratulations on your recent. Okay. Hearing about your type of work, obviously it seems stressful, but would love to actually hear from the two lawyers on the panel a little bit how you guys maybe deal with stress in your industry that you work in.
Sure. So before you go to law school, they put you in a dark room and spin you at 9 Gs. And
I do that after law school, too.
So the stress that I'm about to talk about has nothing to do with dropping bombs on the right spot, so this might not be as entertaining, but I'll give it a shot. Clients are demanding, and I'm sure all of you know that. It's true, though. But part of it is compartmentalizing it, and the most important thing you can have is relationships, no matter where it is. And you got to remember that it's a career, it's a job, but it's also just a job and a career. It's not your life. Your life, more importantly, is having a really good family and really great friends. And I've known quite a few of the people up here for quite a while. I consider my friends, and that's more important than making sure the brief that I'm writing is right, or that I get a red line on something I wrote, or that a client gets sued for patent infringement and is really upset. Which is good for us as attorneys because we want the business. But compartmentalizing is the key in my mind, and kind of putting perspective on what you're doing for work as opposed to what you want to be doing for life, because your life extends beyond work.
Yeah, keeping things in perspective is really important. Keeping perspective of why you're doing what you're doing. It's really important to know what you're trying to achieve. It's helpful not to focus on achieving a next milestone, but to think about how you're improving yourself, how you're applying yourself in what you're doing, trying to think about what skills that you're learning and developing in a stressful situation. Every stressful situation has something to teach you that you can apply in many places in your life, and you become stronger when you experience stressful situations. it's very helpful to maintain your faith as far as keeping perspective and knowing that, there are these great guidelines that help you determine how to act with integrity when things get hard. And ultimately, spending time with family is also a really good way to check some of those stressful situations.
Those are great answers. Keeping stress in mind, I feel like motivation is a big thing. So Mars and Michelle, I would love to hear, you both have different perspectives. So Michelle, you've been at Deloitte for how many years now?
Over a decade.
So how do you stay motivated at somewhere that you've been at for so long?
Sometimes I don't. I think when you're in consulting, and I think it's for a lot of professional services, they kind of dangle these golden handcuffs of partner or managing director or whatever it looks like in your industry, and you kind of do the hustle because you think that that is the end goal, and you kind of keep being motivated on this. And I think maybe the past year came to the realization that that's not very attractive to me in terms of being an end goal, and it wasn't enough to motivate me. And I think as a lot of us here are millennials, we grew up in this idea that work had to be fulfilling, and it had to be this thing that drove you, and you made this huge impact, and you felt like you could wake up every day and change the world. And some days, it doesn't feel like that. Some days it feels like I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation for a client for the 15th time, and I don't really care. But I think that the thing that drives me and the thing that keeps me motivated is, one, my career provides me a lifestyle that I love. It gives me the flexibility to take time off. I just spent a month in Africa. It gives me the time to be with my friends. It gives me intellectual curiosity. Every day I can learn something new. And then the second thing is, we have these 3 rules. We always do things in 3s. Life is about life, work is not about work, and you gotta pay the bills. And I think 1 and 3 makes sense, but the second one is work is not about work. For me, it's showing up for my teammates, it's the relationships that I form, it's being there for your colleagues in those stressful moments, even if it's not about that. And so I know when I show up every day and I'm supporting my team, and they know that I'm there and we're working through a really tough deadline, that is what motivates me to go, much more than some, maybe lofty career goal that I may no longer want.
That's a great answer. For Mariana, for you, I feel like I've known you forever just from Anastasia and Callie, but you're in school again, but you have a full-time job, so just explaining, how do you stay motivated balancing that?
Yeah, I would say that I'm motivated in my career and then also in school. So I do real estate lending, I work in banking. And what interested me about real estate in the first place was just being able to watch a building, a construction site, go from ground up. And in my career, I provide the financing for that. So I think it's really cool from a banking perspective to be able to see, okay, we provided the financing for that, especially on the construction side, and you're there for 2 years, you see the whole development cycle. I go out every month to see the properties and the growth that they're making. And then in school, it's interesting because I'm doing my MBA. There's not many people that are in banking in my MBA. I think a lot of people do their MBA to go into finance or to get into investment, into the investment side of business. So I have surgeons in my classes. I have people who are mothers. I've had someone in my group project that was breastfeeding on a Zoom call. So I'm sitting here like stressing about how much work I have. I'm going to work, I'm running to class at night. I have a dog, and I think I have all this responsibility. And then I see people who have families, kids, who are doctors. So that's definitely what motivates me.
So keeping people in mind, because I feel like people look at work and it's about the job, but we're all humans. We work with a lot of humans, whether we're consulting or we're managing people. So we'd love to hear from anyone who manages a team of people and what that's like to be a leader and show up for them every day and what that means for you. I don't know if anyone wants to take this, but.
Thank you. Yeah, I manage a legal team, and that's probably the greatest privilege of my job. I wake up with the motivation of delivering for my team and making them successful. I think often about the families that they support and take the responsibility very seriously that, you know, my providing my employee a job that he or she can be successful in means supporting, in one case, you know, my attorney, his wife, his 3 children, and his 2 dogs. So I take that very seriously because I know that my team is giving their best. When I give my best, they will do the same. When I am respectful of their needs, they do the same in return. And so I think managing a team is about heart first. It's about thinking about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and thinking about what motivates them, what their needs are, and figuring out how to make them successful.
Does anyone else want to talk about managing a team?
So in my current role, I'm the new guy still, so I'm in charge of nothing. But in college, I was a part of the glider instructor program at the Air Force Academy. And I was selected for a position of director of operations. So I was in charge of, well, the operations of 160 undergrads and how like we would be flying and teaching students every single day. And I had to manage who's flying, how are they doing, and what's going on. And one of the things I struggled with a lot was peer leadership. It was a lot of my friends that I go out on weekends with and hang out with all the time. And there was a big hurdle to accomplish, and there's kind of 2 lessons that I took away from that. One is know when to tell them about why you're doing things. Say, here's the reason behind this, you know, behind the curtain of, you know, I made this decision. I'm sorry, you're waking up tomorrow at 5 in the morning to do this thing, but this is just the way it has to be. But here's how you understand why. So explain to your people underneath you why you're doing things, and they'll understand and respect you for it. The second way, and it depends on what career field you're in, with mine it's a little bit more strict, is because I told you so is sometimes the right answer. if you're the boss and you tell the people to do stuff and they're kind of, you know, pushing back against you, that's a perfectly acceptable answer. When we were at the academy, we had a 1-star general who was in charge of us. It's in charge of a lot of the cadets that were there. And I remember she was up in front of us explaining everything, every detail, and like, oh, you know, this is why I'm doing this. We want to make sure everyone feels better with this. And my buddy looked at me and said, she's in charge of us. Because I said so is the right answer in this case. So know when to use that. Know when to explain when the decisions you're making, and know when to just tell them to do stuff.
That was the right answer in my house growing up also. So for me, it's on a case team basis, so it's a little bit smaller, and I also report into a partner. But my one golden rule that I kind of just wanted to lay out is I never create fire drill fake deadlines.
It's really important.
Some people think that that is the way to motivate people and to get people to work harder. And it's not, and it's nonsense. So that's my one main rule. No fake red fire drills. Because then when there's a real fire drill, people actually are willing to chip in and help. But if you fake it all the time, then it won't come to fruition.
Yeah, it's the sentiment, like if everything is urgent, nothing is urgent. So knowing when to balance that is super important. So I kind of want to switch back to health and wellness for a little bit because we had a lot of people who were interested in that. So health and wellness maybe can be seen as like a trend right now. So how do you guys keep it truly holistic, maybe if it's yourself or with your clients?
I think a lot of ways, and we approach each person that we work with in each business, I think individually, and that's kind of one of the big things is in health and wellness, there's all these fad diets that are coming out, and whether it's keto, paleo, you name it, there's always something new, a new fad, a new trend. We get asked these questions day in and day out, and I think we treat each person kind of individually, and we know that it's all about balance when it comes to optimizing our health. So nutrition can be perfect, but if you have really unhealthy, toxic relationships in your life, or you have a job that doesn't fill you up every day, then you can end up being drained at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it's just kind of finding a sweet spot for each person, each business we work with. And for us, we have 5 pillars of wellness, and nutrition's obviously number 1, sleep, stress management, and then you want to get into some sort of movement and mental health. Those are the big ones. And if you kind of have a little bit of balance in each of those, we find that people really thrive.
We also try a lot of these diets and fads, so we get to weed out what we think works and what doesn't, which is really fun. He's more of the guinea pig than I am sometimes, but I like to try it out for myself. I don't really like to recommend things that I don't know how well they work, but we always preach long term. If it's something you can't do for the rest of your life, then you can't not have any carbs for the rest of your life, then it's not going to give you the results you want long term. So
Yeah. Also, Lexi, I want to hear a little bit about the evolution of technology, right? Because it's changing constantly. So how, as a leader in the space, do you stay up with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably there's many folks in this audience, I think, who would probably answer this question better than I do. My sister, for example, is a computer programmer, so she works like literally day in, day out in kind of the weeds of a lot of this stuff. I think the key for me to kind of navigating a really fast-moving space is, I think something you mentioned earlier, is maintaining that intellectual curiosity. That has really kind of helped me navigate a lot of the gray areas that I think as technology evolves, as we're sort of not seeing longer-term effects in the shorter term, there's so much that can be that can feel just overwhelming. And I think part of the reason why I had originally been considering law actually at one point was because there seems to be this constant catch up that happens with new emerging technology. People try to take advantage of it. Some people get taken advantage of. There's a lot of fraud, but then eventually laws and regulations start to catch up to it. But sometimes it feels like a little bit too late. Obviously, everyone is probably fairly familiar with the FTX fraudulent cases that have been and everything that's kind of spiraled out of that movement. It's made bigger players in the space definitely, I think, more reluctant to engage in some of these emerging technologies, even though it could be argued that it wasn't, Bitcoin's fault that Sam Bankman-Fried decided to use customer funds to basically gamble with. I mean, that was just kind of a really error in his judgment, and I would say not even just an error in his judgment, but just intentionally obfuscating information from customers. I think it was abhorrent, to be clear. But I think there's kind of that balance and that thread that we try to we try to kind of skate along this line of really trying to make sure that we're staying on top of things, but also not and especially at Discover exposing customers to something that might inadvertently harm them.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and give you all the opportunity to answer if you'd like. We're at Leadership 100. One of the most important things is our faith. We're all Greek Orthodox, so I would love to hear from a simple to elaborate, however you guys want to say it, how do you keep faith at the forefront of what you do?
A couple things come up on that one. I would say one is we know the Greek Mediterranean diet is the healthiest, most delicious food. So we preach that big time with a lot of our clients, and you'd be amazed at how many people just feel better when they shift towards that style of eating. Yeah, so that's a no-brainer. And I would say the second component for me is spirituality, and I think mindfulness and meditation for me it's like a staple in my daily routine for mental health, for stress, anxiety, kind of just managing the business and the stress that comes with it. And prayer is a piece to spirituality, so I think I've found a way to kind of weave the two together, and that's been the way that I kind of combined the two.
Nice.
yeah, I think for us, the Mediterranean diet and eating like a Greek is definitely something we preach. Everyone can feel good eating that way, and the Greeks live a nice long life. So we do preach that. I think it works for a lot of people. But yeah, mindfulness, I think, can be in so many different forms, and prayer is a kind of meditation. So anyone who's really stressed, that comes to me and they just want some stress management tips, I always try to incorporate some silent moments throughout the day, and that can be prayer as well. So.
I would say, I think all of us can agree, like being Greek means being Greek Orthodox, and your heritage goes hand in hand with your faith. I had the luxury of, when I started out my career, my mentor was Greek, and I met her through my church, and she was a woman in banking, which you don't see often, and you don't see many Greek women in banking. So she really inspired me to get into banking, and I keep my faith at my forefront. I go to church. I'm a part of these Greek organizations. I try and help out younger Greek youth who are getting into the finance world, into banking, into real estate, encouraging them. And yeah, I think that's really the best way to help out one another.
I'll take this from like the reverse approach, because unfortunately if you tell a judge you're Greek Orthodox, it does you no good. So being Greek and Greek Orthodox doesn't necessarily only, oh, my career this or my career that, but what happens when you're done with your day, right? And having that background as Greek Orthodox, as Greek, our religion, our faith, our heritage, kind of gives you some peace to deal with the craziness of what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So not everything has to be about, oh, career, Greek. It can be like a mix.
How do I use my faith in my career? So many ways. I think often about when I'm faced with challenges, I think about the story of Job, and I think that I don't get challenges that I can't handle. When I'm stressed, I think about the Bible passage that talks about the lilies in the field and the birds that have food provided to them, that God will provide. I pray. This Koboskini that's been on my wrist saved me when I was having like a freak out during the bar exam. It helped me, calm down and actually use the prayer method to calm myself and reconnect and refocus and pass the bar. I use my faith in ways externally too. I have icons on my desk. It has, I think in so doing, it's allowed my other employees to feel comfortable with their expressions as well. One of my employees is Orthodox, and so he also has an icon on his desk, and he never had an icon on his desk before coming to this role. Another one of my employees is Sikh, and so she has something of her own faith on her desk, and I think that that's a beautiful thing. I also talk about it. When my colleagues talk about their yoga retreat with their guru, I talk about my visit to the monastery and my time with my nun. And so I think bringing these things up and vocalizing them and socializing them and being proud of the many ways that your faith provides you with strength is a really great thing to do.
Definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. I think that, a lot of times when I get asked, or just honestly, whenever we ask someone, oh, what do you do? It's very easy to just get into the what of what you do. But there's also another layer deeper of that is within your team, you talk about how. And then I think at the core of that, there's the why of what you do every day and what really kind of motivates you and kind of keeps you going. I think that, my faith has definitely helped to inform the why of what I do every day, not necessarily just in my career, but just generally in life. And I think some of that trickles over into my job, some of that trickles over into my social life and family life and everything. But it's kind of the core motivator of, part of the reason why we, get up every day, part of the reason why we try to treat each other as, the golden rule. And I think also with Orthodoxy in particular, I've always been kind of fascinated with how there's sort of this very comfortable or comfort with the idea of mystery and not knowing or knowing what we don't know. And I think something that we've talked about a lot in my household, both my parents are in healthcare, one's a doctor, one's a dentist. And on the one hand, I think Orthodoxy really offers interesting answers as to kind of juxtaposing hard science and data with other kind of mysteries of the universe that maybe some other faiths, or like not having faith might kind of explain. So I think it's really the answer is that it's omnipresent in my life, and as a result filters into my career as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like the word you use, authenticity, because I think as we live our lives as authentically as we can, it naturally comes out. Our faith comes out. People notice it. They get curious about it. They ask us about it. It might be back in the day, pre-COVID, when we were traveling all the time, boss saying, let's meet 9 a.m. on Sunday. Sorry, I have church. I'll see you at noon. Right? It takes confidence, but then he came back and said, you know what? I want to go to church too. Let's all meet at noon. It's someone noticing I'm fasting during Lent and then having the confidence to ask me, hey, it's my first Ramadan as a young professional in a career. Can you help me with this? How do I fast and still maintain at work? And just opening that door. It's a colleague going through a tough time and going to another person that I manage. I manage mostly middle-aged men, engineers, they're a little rough around the edges, but I love them. And he goes, you should probably tell Michelle what you're going through. She prays for us. That doesn't happen in the business world unless you're living authentically and you open up that for them to see your heart, and then you can meet them where they are.
I use faith a lot to, whenever I'm going through a bad time, I always lean on it. For one example is I always fly with my stub roll. I always have it on me at all times and never take it off. And right before I get into the jet, I'm all geared up and I gotta go up the ladder. I do my cross a few times, kiss my cross, and then go up the jet, put on the helmet, and I'm like, okay, time to go. And so that's one of the rituals that really helps focus me up and get me ready to go. But something more so than that is wearing my cross all the time. I remember I was getting told like, hey, you're an idiot in this debrief, and I had my cross was out, and the instructor looks at me and says, Dundee, dude, Knox was too tough for them. Dundee, why are you wearing a cross right now? You know you're not allowed to wear that when you fly. And he said, that could strangle you if you ever have to eject. And I said, I think it's more dangerous to not wear it. And that's something that I really hold with. It keeps, have my faith close to me. It always helps. And there's been some times when I've been extremely stressed out and worried, on the brink of failing out of a program or having issues where I really didn't know where else to turn. And I leaned to my faith. I prayed a lot, and it helped get me through. At minimum, it helped focus me, but I think God has really answered my prayers to get me through that. And then the last part of that is when I had to do the survival training thing, I really leaned on my faith a lot during that, because one of the things they did was simulate prisoner of war treatment, just in case. And what they did was stuff, but they push you to as close to your breaking point as you can, or sometimes your breaking point. And I remember when I was in a certain environment, I was in pain, not having fun, and was just not enjoying anything. And in my head, I kept thinking back to Ionian Village, when we were all huddled up around the fire at the end of the night, and we were singing. And to me, that was just like a beacon. Everything warmed up and hurt a little bit less. And I was able to get through that scenario because of it. So definitely leaning on your faith is, no matter what it is, if you're stressed or if you're having a bad day or I really hope I don't mess this up, that's where you want to use it.
You guys all had amazing answers. Thank you. I'm going to do one last question for all of you, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So what advice would you give someone who feels lost or stuck when it comes to their career? Or with that too, we have a lot of younger people here starting to think about what their life looks like in the workplace. So any type of advice that you'd give to someone who's just starting out or stuck in a career? If you want to, let's start back this way.
For me, I heard a speaker when I was working at PwC who left a huge mark on me, and he wrote a book called The 8 Cylinders of Success. It's a $15 book on Amazon, and it kind of put me on the path to wellness. It's basically a book that helps you map your passions to your career and find some sort of synergy there. And I remember on the last page, I wrote the words wellness consultant, and I had no idea what that meant at the time. but it planted a seed in my mind, and that pushed me to go and look into schools and, talk to people who had done something similar to what I wanted to do. And I would say if you can map your passions with your career, I think, in my opinion, it's going to give you a really, really high chance of succeeding and being the best version of you can. And I actually cued that music just now, so a little louder. That's my advice, is like, if you can find a synergy so that way work is enjoyable, it's huge. And that book was a game changer.
I was working at a job that I really was not passionate about, and I did not like going to work every day, and it was miserable. And the thing that really pushed me into what I do now is getting really sick and kind of like that low point. And that was when I realized I can't do this for the rest of my life. Like, I'm spending so much of my time doing something that I'm really not passionate about. So I think, like, kind of similar to what you said, if you can find something that you want to wake up and do every single day and be really excited to go to work and work on Saturdays and Sundays, then that would be the best path for you. I think that's what really pushed me into the health space. So, and sometimes just like low points as well in your life. Maybe it's like the time that you can kind of sit back and think, what do I really want to do?
I would say, first of all, don't be so hard on yourself. I don't want to be ageist, but I think I might be the youngest one on this panel. And a lot of my friends in the past few years have pivoted in their careers. They don't know what they want to do. They're doing something that they're not happy in. Don't be hard on yourself if you don't know what you want to do. Or if you're in a career that you might not be happy in, and don't be afraid to make a change. The first bank that I was with after graduating undergrad went through a merger in the middle of COVID. And I was really scared of being laid off. I wasn't ready to leave banking yet. I wanted to stay in banking. I wanted to move over from portfolio management to business line, and that was when I decided to pursue my MBA, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made. So don't be afraid of challenges in your career. I think look at them more as opportunities.
Two quick things. One, to go off what Mariana said, when you decide an initial path, it doesn't mean that you're locked into that path for the next 50 years of your life. And the second thing is talk to people and start this weekend. There are a lot of people here in a lot of different career paths. Talk to them, pick their brain, see what they do, see if they like what they do, and if they don't, maybe take note of that as well. But yeah, I'm sure everyone on this stage, I'm speaking for, but they can correct me if I'm wrong, would be happy to talk to you one-on-one about the things that they do. And I know a lot of the people that have been in leadership for a long time that are in our age would be happy to do the same. Some of the parents as well that are here and not here would be happy to do the same. Wear people's ears out. Just keep asking questions and keep going. They're happy to respond.
That's such a good point. I would say embrace the challenge. You'll be able to achieve what you set your mind to. It's not going to be easy, and it shouldn't be. I think often I hear presently a lot of advice about taking a route that's comfortable. I just don't think that that's realistic, and I also don't think that that's actually going to do you much good. I think that you're going to feel the most satisfaction in your career when you are challenged, when you work really hard to overcome that challenge, and then you achieve. And then I think you'll feel really satisfied and really good about what you do. You'll feel satisfied about setting your mind to something and grasping the goal that you didn't think you could. In so doing, you should definitely talk to people and not think that anything is outside of your reach. The person that I admire most professionally is my brother, who's here, and he asked, when he was trying to select his career, he asked a great question. He asked me, hey, who are the smartest people that you know? And during our college time, and I just directed him to some people who were the smartest people I knew in our college, and he kind of figured out what they were doing and ended up going into that field. I bring up this story because it's about figuring out what the group that you want to be with is like. Sorry, it's a little distracting.
Sorry.
What is the group that you want to be with? Not necessarily what's an easy route, but kind of who do you want to become? And you will be able to become that which you set your mind to.
Yeah, those all fantastic answers. I would add to that also in just the kind of idea of stretching yourself too. Don't let fear of failure stop you from doing something. I think this, kind of goes without saying. Some of the best lessons that I have learned in life have been from when I've tried something and then failed miserably at it. Yeah. Those have been the moments that have really, I think, given me more growth than anything, and have kind of, helped hone and refine what I thought I wanted to do versus what I ended up doing. And then one other thing I would say, one piece of advice that a mentor had given to me in a time where I kind of, was feeling maybe sort of directionless and was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do, was to pay attention to random. So things that you might think, that get thrown your way that maybe seem laughable, that don't seem realistic at all, pay attention to those things because they may end up coming back. You may have misjudged them, and they might end up informing aspects of your life that you would have never thought had you dismissed them.
I think kind of in the vein of not being so hard on yourself, I think kind of reduce what the vision of a career is. And that's not to be complacent about it, but I think sometimes we get told we're 19, 20 years old, okay, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. The business line that I'm in today didn't exist 3 years ago. I might have been at my company for over 10 years, but I've had several different jobs, several different ideas of it. And so if you go in trying to think of, oh my gosh, what do I want to do for 50 years? You're never going to come up with the answer. It's what skills and experiences do I want in the next 2 to 3 years? What do I want to gain in my toolkit so that in 2 to 3 years, if I want to pursue a different passion, I have the skill set to go do that. And then you start to take these little pivots where you take, something that you knew before, something that you don't know yet and you want to learn, and you make these pivots throughout your career, as you said, zigzag, kind of throughout. And then you get to try different things. Our lives are going to be so rich and beautiful that you don't have to feel like you need to lock into something now, because guess what? It's going to change and it's going to be okay.
Everyone here has felt at one point like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I feel hopeless. Like I'm in a circumstance I don't want to be in. I don't want to do this. And the two things I think best help you get out of that are like looking at the big picture and then looking backwards. Looking at the big picture of like, why am I actually here? Like, yes, I'm doing this task at this moment, but I'm doing this to get to this end piece. And okay, after I, take that bite, what's the next bite? I mean, that's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You just keep going, going, going. And before you know it, you turn around and you're kind of at this really cool spot. So if you look at the big picture of why you're here and what this small little task is, that'll really help. And then looking back, look back at the person you were 5 years ago when you're 10 years old and like, am I on the path that I either wanted to be at or like living the life that I would want back then. And I think that really puts a lot more things in perspective that even though you're to get deep here, if you're at this one moment in your life, you're at one point with a large portion of your life in front of you and behind you. You just want to keep progressing the way you need to do it. Hope that makes sense.